I digress. We're moving on to match number 3 of the day. It's going to be SilverName taking on Orange in this one. And SilverName, I think, has a lot left on the table to prove for himself after Season 1 and it not really going his way. I think a lot of the time in Specialist, he was bringing a deck that I would have considered weak in terms of its power level.
Yep.
And now that he's stepping into a Conquest-like format, he can't be doing that anymore. You're going to have to come correct and bring the good decks and figure out the way that a lineup is working against your opponents. And I think he's done that this week.
And we have perhaps our biggest diversion so far in terms of protects and bans. We see another non-warrior protection from SilverName, who is protecting his Mage, and Priest being banned away, and Hunter being banned on the other side. We saw, or heard at least, Kalento talking about how he really felt like Highlander Hunter was a tier 1 deck, and you can see the respect being given there to ban it away. But just going back to your point, I totally agree with you, and I would even elaborate on that to say that the only problem with SilverName last season was that he was bringing bad decks. He was playing those bad decks very well. I was actually impressed with a lot of the lines he was taking, and then later on, when he started switching to Bomb Warrior, I was quite impressed with his Bomb Warrior play as well. I think as a player on a technical basis, he really understands how to execute a game plan. He just didn't have the right game plan to begin with. He was going in with just very strange off-kilter decks, which he continued to insist for a long time, you know, were his highest win rate options and were the correct choices. He eventually acquiesced, but if he's going to have a much stronger performance this season, where it is essential that he does, because otherwise he's going to be in contention for those relegation spots, then that is going to need to change.
Right, that's really the big box that I have yet to open up to players, which I intended to do tomorrow and perhaps on Sunday as well, is ask players about what they think of relegations being introduced.
Yeah.
And perhaps
the first player that just goes like 0-2 through their first week, like, well, you might be getting relegated now. Like, how do you feel about that?
Sottle's gonna be quick to the needle on that one. I'm just gonna
I think we could work these angle where I just ask the most BM question possible in every interview from now on.
You're like, well, I'm gonna go straight back to the Lunas Pocket Galaxy. How on earth would you have won without that thing? SilverName going with the Reno Mage deck in this one. It was his protection, and it is his first to queue up here. And this deck has a lot of, I think, slots that you can toy with in it and see how they end up going. You know, one of the big ones I've seen is just the way that you defend yourself in the early game. And then in Europe this week, we actually have debate over whether or not you even run Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron in the 10-drop slot in this deck. And I am very firmly in the yes camp that you run Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, but Orange is not. He's not running it. He's not playing that deck right now, so we'll get to that a little bit later on. But I think that Mage is probably, even though it's still so powerful, it's one of the decks that's got the most like toying with auxiliary slots that you can do.
And again, it's just the nature of a Highlander deck where you do have a lot of cards that are just kind of ifs, buts, or maybes. You know, you don't have 15 locked-in cards that you're playing 2 of because they're the best cards. You have all these kind of last 8 cards, which are like, yeah, I guess this is good enough. It'll go in my deck. And because of that, you can just play around a lot more with what those last 8 or so cards are.
I want to visit the Masters Tour in Seoul real quick and reference all the aggressive Zephryses that were played on turn 2. I'm eyeing this Zephrys on turn 2, and I'm looking at Animal Companion into protect it with the Bone Reaver.
Bone Wraith.
Bone Wraith, excuse me, sorry. Are you a turn 2 Zephrys gamer?
I am not a turn 2 Zephrys gamer. I mean, it's, of course, as with everything in Hearthstone, it's context sensitive. Like, yeah, I will Zephrys into Wild Growth into Lunas. Like, I will, if that's my hand, then yeah, we'll do it, you know? But in general, I don't know whether it's just because I enjoy the card and I want to learn more about it, and like, we know what those 3 options are. They're the same every single time. It's Brightwing, Wild Growth, Animal Companion. So I don't know whether it's my sense of exploration, which is convincing me not to do that and just look for a different scenario and just find something cool to do with it. But I haven't been doing this much.
Yeah. This has been one of the cards I've played probably the most with in terms of just singular cards from Saviors of Oldham.
Yeah.
And my favorite feeling in the world is Hunter plays a Secret Keeper and you Zephrys backstab it. Ooh. That one feels good.
Yep.
I must choose.
Orange feels obligated to meet this. His warrior deck is built quite interestingly this week. The Azalina Soul Thief in the Bomb Warrior deck from Orange. That's another point that we were just talking about here. I think that's such an important tool to the Bomb Warrior decks now that their curve just seems to keep getting lower and lower over time. We're at this point where your top end is Armageddillo, Blastmaster Boom, 2 Tomb Wardens. Everything else in the deck is like a 4 or less cost thing that you jam into play.
Yeah.
This deck needs to get extra gas. And against a deck like Mage, having Azalina Soul Thief in the later stages, because cards maintain their buffs now, can be a massive difference in how the game works.
That's fair. I think it's interesting as to, you know, whether you even need Azalina on top of that. It's kind of goes back to the old Doomhammer argument where, like, it's likely that you're only going to need 1 Doomhammer, but you play 2, so you always get that 1. In this case, you're going to need 1 big value engine. If you just get Dr. Boom Mad Genius, that's probably going to be enough. It can be a value engine in and of itself, and you can play quite a low curve around that. But if it's just that 1 copy of Dr. Boom Mad Genius in your deck, you might not find it. Therefore, play a different value engine, in this case, Azalina Soul Thief, to back that up.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do with Azalina right now is against the rogue decks. When they post Myra's Unstable Element, as the Bomb Warrior deck, you're usually beating down the door. You're delivering a lot of damage to their face in the meantime. And as they go into the fatigue state, you get to play an Azalina Soul Thief and just take all the damage that they drew, and you're like, you have to kill me this turn. That Leok providing a bit of extra help on that Bone Wraith.
Yeah, it's not a bad situation. But this is a hand that looks more like a Highlander deck to me. Just a collection of underwhelmingly mediocre Hearthstone cards. You look confused.
Well, the Bone Wraith contested the Clockwork Goblin straight up.
It did.
I'm very confused. This sacrifice to Leok.
He didn't want to present a good target for a Restless Mummy on curve, maybe?
This place
the argument.
is scary.
If he just plays the Bone Wraith there and Restless Mummy comes down, there's still the Clockwork Goblin on the other side of the board for Orange that's free to do what he wants, and like, that's just kind of the natural on-curve play that Orange wants to make.
So 1/1 and 3/3 would kill Leok, and then you ping the... I mean, I can see some situations. I'm not buying it, though. I'm curious to see how the game plan pans out. You know, my thinking would be SilverName sees the Mountain Giant hand and says, let's figure out a way to get this active.
Yeah, I think that's fair too.
And then get to the later stages. I'm in for the long haul because my opponent has had a strong opener. I just need to buy some time. All right, that makes more sense to me. I was picturing fighting for the board much more aggressively, and I just don't think that's necessary right now. Yeah, this ends up panning out really well, too, as Orange needs to expend, like, Wrench Caliber this turn if he wants to get through. And that opens up Mountain Giant versus Wrench Caliber, and I can tell you who wins that one. Contests the upcoming Armageddillo turn very nicely as well.
Yeah, the way SilverName has planned this out does mean that he is able to contest most of what Orange is looking to do for the next couple of turns.
Both bombs get drawn as well.
Actually, kind of a good thing for SilverName.
There's 2 sides to every story, but you know what? I'll take the Blastmaster Boom as an active part.
Exactly. He has board. Orange is not really pushing damage, so it's probably a bigger concern right now for SilverName not to have bombs in his deck that activate the Blastmaster Boom, as opposed to just having a higher health total. There are situations where the opposite of that is true. Sometimes Bomb Warriors are just beating you up and they desperately want you to draw the bombs and have them detonate. But a lot of the time, they just want them to chill in your deck for a little while. Restless Mummy will take care of this if Orange would like to go down there, that route alongside the Wrench Caliber.
Oh boy, this feels like a dangerous set of turns here. Where I feel like Orange really wants to play Armageddillo. There's 2 of them in hand. He's got a Zilliax in hand as well. And what I'm seeing on SilverName's side is counterplay on the Reno the Relicologist turns. And so, if for some reason he were to wait on the Reno the Relicologist, he actually gets, I think, sometimes a pretty big payoff from it. But here, I think Orange being interested in clearing off the pressure so that bad things cannot happen is very wise. Just not a very good-looking turn.
Nope. It hurts. You spent your entire turn playing a 1-2. You expended one of your best removal cards in the face of Restless Mummy, and you took yourself 8 damage by swinging the Wrench Caliber into it. Like, no, that is not a success. We do not chalk that one up as a victory for Orange on that turn, but it was probably just a necessary evil to make sure things didn't spiral out of control.
It's going to pan out that way, though, and the reason why is, you know, pretty specifically that SilverName just has a dead hand.
Yep.
All of his hand is responsive right now. I think this is a situation where Bomb Warrior gets to take advantage of this kind of game state. Control Warrior perhaps would not be taking advantage of it.
Yeah, it's fair. SilverName as well, so locked into that Mountain Giant game plan, you know, probably correctly so, that he misses the opportunity to ooze the Wrench Caliber.
Yeah, and no play.
Yeah, Orange probably will not believe his luck. And I think that look of confusion on his face is probably just, okay, what cards does my opponent have in his hand right now? Like, let's work that out exactly, because we can probably do that.
Now, Orange is also very exceptional at this particular skill, where his hand reads often are developed very well in the face of what the opponent does given context of it. And so in that spot, you saw him glance over the deck list, glance back to the screen, glance over the deck list, glance back to the screen. I think he's put together just about everything this hand could possibly be right now. There's some kickers in there with like 8 cost cards and 10 cost cards and stuff.
Yep.
But for the most part, I think he's pretty spot on. I love that animation.
It is pretty sweet. I do like the swirling gem railgun, like whatever you want to call it. Like, it's pretty sweet.
I think that's the technical name for it.
Yeah.
Swirling rail gem gun.
Yeah.
It's truly outrageous.
What now?
Does Orange just go again here?
Yeah. I like 7/6 Ziliacs. Could be interested in stuffing like a Conjurer's Calling, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
I think this stuffs it sufficiently well.
Yeah. But I think, you know, when you're playing against Reno Mage, if you're playing Warrior and they use their 1 Conjurer's Calling in the deck, so, you know, 1+ Twin Spell, but if they use it on a 6-drop, you're probably okay with that, right? Like, it's Mountain Giant or bust a lot of the time. SilverName very much entered yikes country.
Yeah, I'm fearing for his safety right now.
What to do?
It's
What to do?
I think his hand is very powerful for staving off a position for a while. No Galaxy active, and his deck is chocked full of utility stuff. There's a Youthful Brewmaster in here. There's a Doomsayer.
There is.
The Polymorph.
However, there must be said, a puzzle box. And that's the card that can potentially make miracles happen. And I think this goes to the point, you know, you were talking beforehand how there is a little bit of disagreement about whether you play it or not. And I wish I could remember who I saw tweet this, because I'm essentially just going to quote a tweet I saw and can't really give proper credit for it. But the way I really nailed it on, explained it for me, a lot of people have been cutting Puzzle Box because it's a very low win rate card. But the argument against that is to imagine a card that said, when you play this card, you win the game immediately 25% of the time, you lose the game immediately 75% of the time. That card would be broken because you get to choose when you play it, and when that 25% win rate is an improvement on your options.
Yeah.
And that's very much the reflection of what Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron is in just kind of situations like this. Sometimes you just need a gambit.
Yeah. I mean, cards that say when you're losing, try to do something that instead makes you not losing. Sounds like a good card to me.
Yeah.
It's like a Rod of Roasting.
Oh, Rod of Roasting. Yeah, sorry. I wasn't sure what you said there for a second.
Yeah, you know, from the the dungeon run.
Yeah, the Pirate Blast till someone dies thing.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta. I'd play Rata Roasting in this Mage deck.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's a bit powerful, so, you know, I'll settle for the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron. Orange just trying to figure out if there's any reason to do anything other than stick the most development on board. SilverName perhaps being offered opportunities as a result of this. Orange needed something big to happen. He was looking for Blastmaster Boom, looking for Tomb Wardens, Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
What to do? What to do?
SilverName does, even though he has been given a little bit of breathing room, he does still have to kind of get on with this, because if he doesn't, Orange is just going to use up these valuable cards that he has in hand, and then Azalina, and then just push with whatever SilverName has picked up with in the meantime. SilverName does look like he's setting up a little 1-2 punch here. Gives himself options of drawing, you know, more powerful things like Kalecgos off the top next turn, but he does at least have the Alexstrasza to back this up if the Doomsayer does end up going off.
Yeah, it's not gonna go off, but could he have almost made this go off? If he didn't have Omega Devastator on Orange's side, the Ray of Frost would have protected it from the Ziliax attack specifically.
I wonder.
I think that Orange needs to adequately fear the polymorph that's in SilverName's list, so perhaps attaching the Ziliax off the menu.
Right. Especially since we were talking earlier about the read where he looks over at the deck list and is like, oh, my opponent passed. Like, what cards can they have in hand? Polymorph. Polymorph is on that list.
Yeah, Ooze is actually, I think, one of the cards Orange is not thinking about, given that the Reg Caliber survived.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah.
So in Orange's head, that Acidic Swamp Ooze is just a polymorph right now. Like that's where we're at.
Like some freeze, some support effect that does not have an opportunity yet.
Yep. Tough turn. Orange kind of representing it as such. Whoa, 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 whoa! Orange, what's happening?
He missequenced, or he misplaced the Ziliax and stuck it onto the Dynamatic.
Oh,
so
and then he had to snap the Omega Devastator at the end just to make sure the board was cleared.
That's exactly right.
Whoa.
And SilverName kind of having a laugh about that one, and I think rightfully so, because this opens up what is potentially a disaster on Orange's side now. With Kalecgos being found for SilverName, this discovery is massive, and even if this discovery failed, there's the Blizzard to back it up, as well as the Frost Nova and the Ray of Frost. So SilverName now has breathing room and a chance in this game because that Ziliax was set improperly.
Yep.
That would just be an extra big removal spell in Orange's hand.
What
And
to
Orange
do?
can't believe it.
What to
Look
do?
at the way that his facial expression and posture just changed as a result of that.
That could, without mincing words, just end up being a huge threat in this match. Wouldn't go, no real other options for Orange, but now there is every option in the world
That's the
for
smile.
SilverName.
That's the smile of a man who doesn't want to, or wants to play the puzzle box right now, but knows that they probably shouldn't.
But what's in the box?
I mean, it's Yogg-Saron's box. It's just a bunch of random spells.
Oh. Yeah. You still have 10 left at the end of this.
Yeah. Giddy up!
How many chances do you get to cast 10 spells for 0?
Oh, wow. Dog, what are you doing?
Rudder roasting. You called it. Yeah, this was the important thing. As I said, SilverName still does have the full 10 to recover from this afterwards. He did also end up silencing at the end of all that, all the buffs that he put on his opponent's half of Tomb Warden, which is pretty nice, at least.
I mean...
But I think it's safe to say Orange probably didn't deserve to get that lucky with the puzzle box there. Nothing really hugely beneficial for SilverName. The positive things he achieved that turn really came through the mana that he spent honestly after the puzzle box went off.
That's true, but I mean, we did pick up 3 extra cards and a card draw in the form of Twilight Drake.
That's fair.
The secret also just adds a kicker to Orange's side. Like, he's going to figure out what it is right here, right away, but you have to at least think about what that secret means. I think that I would consider that a very successful puzzle box, personally.
We were having this argument yesterday, but I think we have very different standards. Interesting. Sequencing.
Look at this next turn from SilverName too.
Yeah.
Twilight Drake, blow up the weapon, play my own weapon, get my own Blastmaster boon.
Yeah. All right.
And being at 11, SilverName has an excellent break point here as well, where he's not vulnerable to 2 bombs exploding in his face, and he gets to Alexstrasza himself later on as well, or option to, rather.
I think it's the turn as you described, though. The Antonidas is very enticing, but that can be plan B at this point.
Yeah, this is just way too much of a swing.
This Blastmaster Boom could just end up being the real kicker, because Orange does have another brawl to spare here. Warpath Dynamatic? Enough? No. But yeah, this Blastmaster Boom.
Well, for Orange, so if Orange plays Azalina Soul Thief, he acquires a Frost Nova.
Okay.
He just doesn't have any response to the Archmage Antonidas on the other side, so that's death. He pretty much just is dead.
Yeah.
This,
he, of course, doesn't know that, but yeah.
Yeah, this is going to remain firmly in the SilverName has tempo camp for the rest of the game.
Yeah. And the rest of the game is not all that long.
Blastmaster Boom, you can Grim Rally with his butts.
Oh, that's actually really sick.
Or you can just Conjurer's Calling your Blastmaster Boom.
I kind of like the Grim Rally play better.
Well, that's my least favorite one.
Yes, I agree.
It does offer up a, I think, an instantaneous lethal though. So you would get to set Flame Ward, get a Fireball, and then just play another spell, and you have another Fireball. So that does set up a pretty guaranteed lethal situation.
Yeah.
It has changed from my least favorite play.
No, it's still my least favorite.
My least favorite play is attack your opponent with Wretch Caliber, Alexstrasza them, and then Grim Rally.
Fair point. Allow me to clarify. Of the 3 plays we discussed this turn,
that are reasonable,
that is still my least favorite play.
One's out on me.
He wants to wait and do the Grim Rally next turn when he has the initiative of the attacks anyway. I guess that's fair.
Yeah, the freeze I think just sets up here for
sure.
a pretty guaranteed spot. Oh. And honestly, this would have been the thinking behind the Archmage in this situation, is that if your opponent has like exactly Omega Devastator, perhaps you get to swing the game back around just by killing them with Archmage Antonidas. So Archmage Antonidas would have been vulnerable to Shield Block into Shield Slam, or or Dr. Boom
Magenius and Shield. Yeah, the Magenius is the thing I'm scared of, I think, when I make that play. Although, if you Antonidas Flame Ward Conjurer's Calling your Antonidas, you still get the 2 Fireballs and 2 6-drops, 2 7-drops alongside that. Okay, that is now my favorite play of the previous 3, or 4 now, however many plays we're up to.
I want to...
I've changed my mind. Antonidas should have been played last time.
I want to correct myself. There are no shield slams in Orange's deck.
Oh. Then yeah, I'm fully Team Antonidas for last turn. I take it all back. Probably not going to end up mattering too much, as Orange in desperation mode has to go fishing for something from SilverName's hand, and that something is a Conjurer's Calling, which is really not going to get the job done.
Hyreek costs 8 mana, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no slow roll on the 7 drop from Antonidas that puts them outside of range of lethal or anything.
Goes for the Conjurer's Calling on his own 7 drop, looking for defensive options, but he wasn't going to find it. He would need some way to taunt and heal out of range of just fireballs being thrown from hand and destroy an Antonidas, all with one Conjurer's Calling. And yeah, that was not going to happen. And I said that the panic with the Ziliax and the Omega Devastator could have ended up being a pretty huge throw in the context of that game, that match, and series. It kind of ended up that way.
It ended up mattering. I don't know if the conclusion changes on that one. SilverName just got some really good power turns in there.
I mean, it's 10 more healing, first and foremost, that goes off.
Correct, but I think the bigger one is just the giveaway of the Omega Devastator. We're not being able to check the Caligo.
Oh, right, but I mean, we're all talking about factors of the same play, though,
yes.
right?
I think that the play is, you know, obviously a colossal error,
yeah.
But it's not an error in terms of judgment. It is an error in terms of you forgot that mechanic was there.
Yeah.
I think that his play was set in the right direction, and he just messed it up.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think if any of the players that Orange is probably the most susceptible to, I just see him kind of do things sometimes, and he goes, oh, I forgot about that one thing.
Yeah.
But his decision-making is always in that one spot. Just forgot about the mechanic.
It's a kind of mistake that, like, for example, viewers of Twitch chat will focus on and say, oh my god, he's so bad, like, how do you mess that up? But, like, a brain lapse like that is not an indicator of a good or bad player. You know, the indicator of a good or bad player is plays that indicate levels of matchup understanding or lack of knowledge of matchup understanding. You know, it's just a play that sends them down the wrong line in the game. It's not a play where you just forget that, you know, their armor smith is going to get 1 extra health because you attacked in the wrong order. You forgot your positioning for magnetic. Like, that's just your brain lapsing because you're focused on other things. The real indicator of a high quality or a poor quality player is, you know, macro decisions being made that indicate how well they understand individual matchups.
Very well said. I think that is extremely well said. And so that means we got to go to a break, and when we come back, game number 2 of Orange versus SilverName is coming right up. So stay tuned. It's our first day here of Hearthstone Grandmasters Season 2 in the European region.
Hearthstone Esports is home to many competitive formats, each with their own unique variants and rules. Today, we're going to break down one of them, the Shield Phase Conquest format. And here's how it works. To start, both players bring 4 decks, each from a unique class. The match starts with a Shield Phase. This is where both players choose one of their own decks to protect, making it ineligible to be banned. Once the Protect phase has ended, both players will then ban one of their opponent's decks, removing it from the pool. Each player then selects which of their remaining decks they would like to play first, before beginning the first game of the series. When the first game of the series is over, the winner's deck is removed from their pool of eligible decks. Both players then select the next deck they would like to play. The loser of the first game can choose to replay with the deck they lost with, or they can choose one of their other 2 available decks. In Best of 3 conquests, the first player to 2 wins is the victor. In Best of 5 series, such as those in the semifinals or finals of major events, the first player that makes it to 3 wins takes the W. It's that easy. Shield Phase Conquest allows players to showcase their skill set across different classes, while still giving them the opportunity to play the deck they're most confident with. Now that you've got the download on Shield Phase Conquest, we wish you well on your deck building adventures.
Well met, friend. Ooh. Let's get this over with.
I win!
Oh, what an amazing game! Well played!
Here's to the winner.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region, and our second season here, and our inaugural day of that. I'm Matt's Admirable, and I'm joined by Sottle. And Sottle, we just saw SilverName take down a pretty fantastic game number one with a very poor Mage opening. Had Zephrys early on, but really nothing else going for him.
Yeah, and I think in the end, you were right on the money where the puzzle box was just enough in terms of it didn't really do anything to the board state. He pyroblasted himself in the face. He put a bunch of buffs on his opponent's minions that he ended up then removing with the silence. But most importantly, he got himself a Wrench Caliber and a Blastmaster Boom in his hand. And that was just enough of a 1-2 punch to end out the game alongside the Archmage Antonidas that was picked up alongside that. But, you know, it would be unfair not to mention it again if we're recapping it. It was a window that was very much opened by Orange himself previously in the game.
Indeed. Made a pretty big oversight, and it caused a pretty dramatic error that changed the scope of the game. But we're on to game number 2 now, and we're in Shield Phase Conquest, which means that players are playing in a traditional conquest-like phase where when they win with the deck, it's now out of contention, and you're trying to win 2 games before your opponent wins 2 of them. Which brings us to the cues now that the players are bringing up. Orange is going to be on Warrior for this one, and SilverName's going to be on his Highlander Hunter deck. So Orange running back the Bomb Warrior to try to get the job done, and we're taking a look at the Highlander Hunter deck of SilverName right now, and it's got the cards that I like and that I think are key to it, which is the Extra Generation in Hunter's Pack. I think that is a very paramount card in this deck.
I don't know whether I agree with the word paramount, but I think it's a card that makes sense to go in there when you have 30 cards to play with. The key cards are kind of the ones that you would play 2 copies of anyway if you were playing, a non-Highlander version of the deck. But you can see our version of the key cards there. Subject 9, Dino Tamer Bran, which is the unique benefit that you do get with a Highlander Hunter. A 7-mana King Crush alongside that original 2/4 body. And that is a huge upside for you in that spot. SilverName finds himself a pretty solid opening curve. Debate as to whether he wants to hold on to this Masked Contender and look for a secret or not. Thoughts on that?
Well, I think I would tend to hold on to Masked Contender here. There's a lot of secrets in the deck. I would tend to throw away the Spring Paw as well. Yep. I think it's just not super good for that deck. Apologize for the spectator. We'll get that fixed as quickly as we can. I want to go back into my statement of Paramount. I think that for the Highlander Hunter decks, that card generation is paramount. I think that you don't have enough consistent ways to apply pressure to your opponent. That what that means is your rest of your cards are just trying to get you to a stage where you do something. And when you only have 1 copy of Hyena Alpha and you only have 1 copy of Animal Companion, the rest of your cards are servicing as basically just trade for your opponent's cards, kind of cards. I think when that happens, you need to be able to generate extra resources. And I think as we saw in the game with Swids, Zul'jin just didn't do anything the game that he played it. It had very minimal impact on that game. If instead he has 6 extra cards in the form of having 1 Hunter's Pack drawn, that changes the whole game.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah, I think part of the suffering of not being able to play 2 Unleash the Beasts, 2 Hyena Alphas, like whatever else you're talking about, is that you do end up getting trade down. getting traded down kind of worse than 1-for-1 from your side by your opponent a lot of the time. So yeah, I guess you've swayed me a little bit. I can see it being slightly more essential, but you know.
I'll take a little bit of sway. That's a victory in my book. Just like that puzzle box of Yogg-Saron.
Yeah, a little bit of sway. It's like a palm tree in a light breeze.
Ooh, that sounds like sunny California.
This place is scary.
No, it's not.
It's not scary. It's sunny California.
What are you talking about, Shaggy?
You know what's scary? The Halls of Agony. Okay, I have leveled so many characters through that in Diablo. That's a scary place. There's just fire and skeletons everywhere. This is the Orgrimmar board.
Yeah, you lost me.
Shout out to Classic WoW players.
The Rattrap Mask Contender curve is very nice in a lot of spots. Not really relevant here because SilverName has the Snake Trap anyway, which he's going to choose to go with. But just that ability to have a secret that your opponent actually can't proc, even if they wanted to then curve into your powerful plays like Mask Contender and Hyena Alpha.
Trying to think about all the minions that would let you do this. There's the, like, Gravel Snout something. It's like a
right. Give your opponent a minion. Yeah.
You're just like, ha! Oh, there's 3 snakes in play. Nice little gotcha. I always like the gotcha plays. Like that.
Yeah, gotcha for 2, idiot. Spring Rocket. Weren't expecting that, were you?
What he said.
Yeah, what the? Like, I have no idea what he says.
I mean, if you know the troll language stuff, again,
Okay,
shout out
right.
to Classic WoW players.
So I'm not supposed to be able to understand it.
You know.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Philistines like you, they're not supposed to understand.
Sure, no, that's fair. I'll hold that.
What now?
Mask Contenders, it just makes so much sense in this deck. Like, you need things that fill in your curve, you need things that can provide you defense, and you need things that can get the ball rolling. And this is like the only card in the deck that can do all of it. Now, sometimes it does that, and you're pretty upset about it.
Yeah, that's, of course, the inherent downside of just having a card that says, I'm going to play one of your secrets. Secrets, particularly Hunter Secrets, are kind of very situational, and you want to pick and choose which one you play when. We had the same situation with kind of Mad Scientist back in the day, where sometimes, you know, Face Hunter games were won or lost depending on which secret came out of the deck from Mad Scientist. Sometimes the card's just too good not to play, and that was very much the case for Mad Scientist.
Kind of still is, honestly.
Yeah.
Shout out to the wild players out there.
You're such a wild boy now.
Well, this is my shout-outs game.
Okay.
We have a nice, slow, chill game happening. Building up to the cool stuff. And yeah, I am such a wild. I like wild.
You do.
Something about old cards just makes me happy.
I wonder.
To my side.
Yeah, that looks like a lot of stats to me.
Something to hide.
Doesn't line up super well versus the Omega Devastator.
No, that's kind of the problem this turn. He may be forced, SilverName, to just Eaglehorn Bow into this Omega Devastator next turn after it takes value trades, just to try and push some minion damage.
Does have the Snake Trap there, but I'm looking at that Dinomatic.
Yeah. Still 9 health in total on the boards. Means that Dynamatic could end up in a lot of situations where Orange just takes huge amounts of damage on the backswing.
Its worst outcome is it clears a single 1/1.
Yeah. That was
Much
a pretty good
better.
one. Yeah.
Much better.
SilverName here not having like the smoothest curve for himself. I think every turn he should be considering a end of turn Zephrys, like what exactly that looks like for the following turn. So exactly, you're saying is you spend exact mana and play Zephrys with your last 2 remaining mana, and then that convinces Zephrys to instead look for a play for you for next turn. So he'll pick up powerful on-curve plays for whatever your next turn is. And honestly, SilverName does feel like he's just scrambling a little bit for some things to do, so that might just be something to consider.
Yeah, it definitely, it's a telling story that Orange is building up just a ton of cards, and that SilverName's starting to dwindle on a number of cards, and hasn't really gotten pressure as a result of that. So that is, I think, a tale to be told, and how you want to try and manipulate Zephrys AI to give you that card you wish for. Wow. That is just a stacked hand on Orange's side.
Yep.
It's like your mission right now is just simply don't die. You don't really care how inefficient it is. Like, the more damage you can prevent, the better.
Oh yeah, if you get to play all of these cards, you win. So just do that.
I must choose.
Orange, of course, working with the information of what this secret might be. It was pretty freshly played the previous turn, the pressure plate. Chooses to use the Restless Mummy there. Ziliax has a ton of upside later on with all of the mechs that he has available for magnetic options.
Yeah, and the damage to face ends up being a pretty relevant mechanism here.
Unity, precision, perfection.
SilverName just so far behind when it comes to tempo right now. Just nothing really happening for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what cards generate that back that are in the deck right now. And I think that he's in a similar spot that I described Orange's as, where you pretty much just want to not take as much damage as possible.
Yeah. Oh, that Wrench Caliber is pretty exciting for Orange with the Blastmaster Boom available on the far left.
It's just the mana expenditure is awful.
Yeah, I mean, this turn is pretty
What
inefficient,
now?
whichever way you cut it.
Thinking Ziliax, prevent the 3 damage life gain
Yeah.
on SilverName's side. It's effectively 3 extra damage.
It is. I wonder whether just, you know, getting through quickly with those bombs into Blastmaster Boom kind of offsets that extra healing that you'd give the opponent anyway.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well. Also looking at the Spring Chicken.
Spring Chicken.
You know which one I'm talking about, though.
I do. I mean, he costs 5 now. He ain't no Spring Chicken anymore.
You know, I mean,
I must choose.
everybody gets old. I'm almost Brian Kibler age.
What?
I'm almost Brian Kibler age.
Really?
I'm 34. Hey, you forgot that, didn't you? You know why? Because I'm a spring chicken.
I thought you were like a few months older than me. I didn't realize you were a couple of years older.
I feel like we've had this conversation
Yeah,
6 times.
probably. I don't know. Just a terrible person.
Ooh, that's a way to get tempo.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about the best he's got going for him right now.
Again, I think you're just taking too much damage is the thing. Like
Yeah.
that Dynamatic is going to keep trucking away almost regardless of what SilverName does unless he wants to use Zephrys and blow it up.
Agreed.
So let's get 2 minions, blow it up that way, and you see the way that Orange responds to the Dinotamer brand.
Woo!
And you know what? Just ship it at face. That's a good way to get tempo too.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I think it does kind of make sense because SilverName does have a hero power that, you know, helps him push through, and he does have Zephrys in hand that can be turned into burn damage at any point.
Wind Fury next turn if that thing lives.
And he does have the Eaglehorn Bow supporting damage as well. The one thing that is kind of disrespect is Ziliax from Orange's side because you leave that mech up and able to operate. But even then, it's still not enough to take care of the King Crush. So it would be Ziliax plus something that really
Warpath.
punishes you in this spot.
So it'd be Warpath into Ziliax into...
Well, Warpath, there's a pressure plate in play.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. In my head, this was just Rattrap because I was staring at the Rattrap in hand. What am I doing? So I think if Two Warden comes down, Zephrys would offer Mass Dispel
Yes,
to
very
push
possible.
through.
Yep.
I must choose.
May still offer Wind Fury.
Yeah, you have to kind of finagle it through the mana, I think.
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure. That is, I'm telling you, it's one of the toughest cards in the game to manipulate well. Yeah, that disrupted Orange's game plan a lot.
He has 13 if he can get a Master Spell from Zephrys. Hero Power first, play the Zephrys, grab Master Spell, push everything. Boy, that's a lot of damage. Would Zephrys give Master Spell in the spot, though?
If you think if you Hero Power first, it's going to think about it more.
I don't think it will. I don't think it values like removing taunt as a keyword unless it pushes lethal. If it pushes lethal, I've done this enough with various decks. Like it finds Master Spell. I've done it in aggro rogue enough times. Like you will kill your opponent. That's fine.
The thing I know is that Zephrys hates taunt minions. And so when it sees 2 of them and you have 4 mana...
Alright, we're about to find out, because it's what SilverName is going for.
Nope. It's not.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
And you can see that he's surprised as well. I am very surprised by that.
I am not. Like I said, I felt it might still offer Wind Fury. I think in Zephrys' mind, hey, this double value trade, killing 2 3/6s is pretty sweet. Yeah, expect a lot of this, by the way. Get used to that happening, where a player has a dramatically different idea of what the perfect card is than Zephrys does.
And get used to the joke I'm going to make. It does say wish for it.
I wonder.
I'm kind of interested in Orange using Blastmaster Boom and Warpath. I think it would only put 2 bombs in the deck after that attack.
Yeah, once this wrench swings, I think it's only 2.
The pressure plate would then clear off your Blastmaster Boom, excuse me. Wow, he's running out of time.
Yep. We've seen tough situations like this with the rope down come to bite Orange once already. I want to see it happen to him again. Taking the 3.
Yeah, he's suiting up the Mega Devastator.
Sure, yeah, playing it on 9.
Digital placement of the Ziliax onto a minion. And that's a major deal.
Yeah. And I said when SilverName kind of committed to the line that he did where he shipped the King Crush face, the one thing that did disrespect was the Ziliax, and you saw his reaction when the Ziliax came down. Really does throw a spanner in the works in terms of what he was trying to achieve. Very little game available to beat this right now. I think, yeah, it's just a 1-spell Subject 9.
Because that freezing trap was eaten very early on by the Mask Contender.
Yep. Could have made a huge, huge difference
Imagine
if that Mask Contender just gave things in the opposite order.
Seriously, imagine if it gave the snipe instead of the freezing trap,
Yep.
and then the freezing trap's picked up here instead.
Yep.
Like, complete turnaround of the game.
Yep.
That is a big ouchies.
I do like the attack face, and then Orange just sort of leant back like, oh cool, that worked. Nothing bad happened.
Well, what bad happens?
Nothing.
He knows the last secret's snipe.
Yep.
And that means it's Rattrap and this thing down.
Pressure plate, Rattrap, snipe. He knows those are the 3 remaining in the deck.
Because I like the build from SilverName to just not have Explosive Trap. Like, I think that card just, what's the point? People aren't attacking with, like, 2/2s right now. They're attacking with, like, 7/7s.
But Nathan, it deals 2 damage to your opponent's face. That's your favorite thing.
Yeah, but not from a trap, though. Okay. I'm not so much into arcane shotting my opponents.
No?
Excuse me, that was the 1 bomb because SilverName had drawn the bomb several turns before. That's the worst. That's the worst one. Well, Orange has got 32 with a heaping pile of stats in hand.
Yeah.
SilverName's at a third of that with not so many.
And also behind on board.
Oh my.
And also there's a Mad Genius.
Yeah, I mean, Orange is probably just more interested in developing minions still at this
Oh
point.
yeah, he's not playing it this turn. There's no way. How big is the copy of Tingle?
3/6. It makes a copy, and then after the minion is played, it's not activates. Soldier or bust.
My pack will hunt you down.
Double rush.
We ever have lethal here with Spring Pole, Spring Chicken, Spring Rocket, and Warpath. Warpath Spring Rocket could end up pushing a ton of damage, right?
Yeah, you sometimes do. I think
Yeah,
you
I was just looking for guaranteeds, and I don't think they're there.
yeah, I would just substantiate the board position here. I think you are fairly guaranteed in a lot of your votes. Oh,
Uh-huh.
you're one off.
Well, let's try that again.
Wait, you could go face and Warpath.
Similar to doing it beforehand, I guess. Yeah, I guess this would have been a better way to do it. Never mind. I just keep playing 3/6s. Seems reasonable.
Yeah, they're good.
Well fought.
SilverName loses game number 2 on the back of his draw panning out dead at the end of the game, and Orange making pretty good use of his hand, which was fairly clunky in the middle of that game, but just got to keep playing stuff and keep hammering away. And so one of the two big things I look at for that one was, A, the King Crush and going face versus trading off. I think if he trades off in that position, he loses most of his hope in that game. And then the Zephrys not providing Mass Dispel in that situation, I think it still gets checked on the back of the Ziliax in that spot, but a very different looking position if the Zephrys had panned out how SilverName had wished it had. But I think that really tells the tale of the practice that you need with that particular card to figure out how it's manipulated in those circumstances.
Right, because that's the important thing is you might disagree with what Zephrys is doing. You might expect it to give you a card that it doesn't, but it's not random. You can learn whether it will or will not give you a card in a certain situation. You know, the code isn't available to us. We don't know what the algorithm is, you know, apart from the things that we are told here and there from developers. So sometimes it can be very, very confusing and seemingly random at times, but it absolutely isn't. There are rules and laws as to what it will offer you at any given time, and the better you get, the less you will be surprised by situations like that.
Yeah, and so the Hunter win picked up for Orange in this one. I'm sorry, the Warrior win picked up for Hunter. I'm going to start over and I'm going to reset. The
Deep
Warrior
breath.
win picked up for Orange in that one. There's so many different classes. It's so different than Season 1.
This is too complicated. How can we possibly handle more than 9 deck slots?
Didn't do it for the first 4 years before that. And so that means that we're going to be queuing into our third and final game of this set where SilverName had protected his Mage deck, and so that's what he'll be on. And Orange is going to run his Mage against that. And the big difference that I notice in these two deck lists is Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron for SilverName, and that is not in the deck for Orange.
Right. I'm not sure how much of an impact it's going to have because, frankly, you don't know. It can have all of the impact in the world. It can have absolutely zero impact. It was very, very relevant for SilverName in the previous game. And it was honestly one of those situations we were talking about, right, where it looked like a game where he was in a really, really miserable position, and Puzzle Box found him an unlikely win condition. And yeah, it might only win 30% of the time in that position, but if that 30% is a higher win rate than you have without it, that still makes it a good card.
Yeah, there are a stark number of differences in just the choices they have made across the deck list as well. One of the things for Orange I'm looking at is Sandbinder, Witchwood Piper. Those are not in SilverName's deck. He's going with more defensive options. The Barista Lynchen, that's found in Orange's and not in SilverName's. It looks like he's opted for the cheap option in the Youthful Brewmaster. Excuse me, he will be on his Rogue deck. So scratch what I said. It's aggro Rogue is what SilverName's going to be queuing up. And
Yeah.
I'm finally glad we get to see this deck because, Sottle, I'm a firm believer that this is just one of the best decks in the game right now.
I am also a believer in that statement, to an extent, because SilverName shown his frustration with Zephrys' behavior in the previous game, and he does not run that Zephrys in his version of Aggro Rogue. He's playing 2 copies of Fairy Dragon instead, which I guess is the replacement. But the idea of, in case you aren't familiar with this deck, like, what are you talking about right now? Why would you play Zephrys in a deck with just an aggro deck with 2 obs of everything? Well, Myra's Unstable Element is a heck of a card. And if you play Myra's Unstable Element and one of the cards you draw or had in your hand before that is Zephrys, the game is over 90% plus of the time. Like, no deck can beat all the damage that is stacked up in this deck, plus a card that will just find you lethal out of nowhere. You imagine you just have a pile of damage in hand, they do what Orange did in the previous game and just slam down a bunch of taunts. If you have lethal damage, it will find Master Spell every single time. So no matter what they're trying to do to defend against that position, Zephrys can be the kicker to dig you out of that. Having said all that, SilverName not playing the Zephrys option in his version of the deck.
Yeah, offered the generous mummy from Pharaoh Cat as well. You saw he was quite unpleased with that.
Oh, yeah, name a more iconic duo. Like, there is no worse feeling than getting this generous mummy off Pharaoh Cat in the early game.
You know, I thought that initially as well, and then my opponent played one against me, and it crushed me.
No.
I don't think it's that bad. I really don't.
Okay. Just gave your opponent 7 innovates.
I'm very aware of that, but they have to be able to use those innovates as well.
Yeah.
In the meantime, it's trucking for 5.
Uh-huh. I'd like to point out that Orange could just coin Pocket Galaxy this turn.
It's a true story.
Observe and reflect.
I'm looking at the Ray of Frost being the most impactful card
Yeah.
that Orange has right now.
Rare Frost is huge. Stalls it out for a couple of turns. In the meantime, he can use the discounts that he's getting to just build a board state that competes with it. Like, he's really not that far away from just being able to, like, coin a Seamat to deal with it, for example.
The Ray of Frost, is, honestly, that's the saving grace of this hand. If Orange did not have a Ray of Frost in hand, I think that he'd be in trouble right now.
Observe and reflect.
He'd take some damage, for sure. But he, you know, he has Yetis and things. He has Barista Lynch, and he could just be like playing out to compete with the 5/4 on the end of the world. This is a situation TJ and I were talking about yesterday, where we both played a decent amount of this deck, and we were both talking about how sometimes Evil Miscreant felt a little bit underwhelming, because if we played a combo activator and we have a Hooked Scimitar in our hand, the Hooked Scimitar gets played, like, every time before the Evil Miscreant. So it starts to wonder about, you know, this is a 3-mana 1/4 in a deck that is otherwise just filled with cards that do damage.
Yeah.
Like, it's cards that do damage and a 3-mana 1/4. That is the deck.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that this deck has a lot of development to go before it's at its final version.
Right.
You know, I jokingly posted on Twitter last night the Wolf Rider version that I had cooked up yesterday.
Yes.
And Casey, you know, I hadn't mentioned the Wolf Rider just yet. He says Wolf Rider after I mentioned Sinister Strike, and I said, oh, the good boy's already in there.
Yeah.
Linked in the deck code, and his response was just deck copied to clipboard, ready to ride.
Let me know when you got some head cracks.
No!
Then we can talk.
6-mana deal 4 is not my idea of a deal. I'm telling you, that Ray of Frost saved 10 damage this game. This game, the mummy sucked.
Your presence offends me.
This is my boy right there.
Ah, yes, Sottle himself.
Yep. Well, a little late to the party to really have been the most disgusting Pocket Galaxy that it could have been. But there is a Barista Lynchon in hand for Orange right now.
Observe and reflect.
I feel like I'm on the Blizzard train. I mean, you're against a burn deck.
There must be a way.
Yeah.
Stop their damage.
Sure. It's not quite that simple. If you use cards to stop damage now, you don't have those same cards to stop damage later.
I guess my thinking would be they might not have the damage later. And I still have Zillion.
But you're playing against a burn deck.
It's a true story, but we're going to have the board.
Yeah.
Oh, we can just play Tiamat because of the elemental invocation. I forgot about this card. And I feel like every time I say invocation or evocation, it swaps back to whichever word I did.
Yeah, it's just always the wrong one.
Yeah, the push of 4, that makes a lot of sense. Wait, actually, that doesn't make much sense. There's a 4/2 lifesteal.
Yeah, I don't really like this line either.
So many options.
It does really prompt SilverName to have to respond, though.
Yeah.
And that's why Orange had gone with this play, is because if SilverName disrespects this and goes face, he has the Blizzard to stop that. If SilverName responds by peeling damage off
So
board, he gets the
many
Barista Lynch or the Luna's
options.
Pocket Galaxy. Nah, I take it back. I like this.
I'm still not sold.
I'll tell you what, if SilverName launches this Eviscerate face,
Too soon.
totally sold.
I mean, if nothing is trading with these minions, then I don't think the Eviscerate is ever going to hit a minion, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, this just makes sense.
Burn Rogue.
Yep, I like it. So now Orange has to start panicking a little bit. He can't really afford to sit around getting greedy with Barista Lynchons or even Blizzards. He needs to heal immediately.
I want to revisit the stop the damage situation.
Observe and reflect.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like Blizzarding last turn was a preferable line to this one. Or the one that Orange took, I should say.
Just really surprised the Reno cracked face instead of the minion.
Yeah.
There must be a way.
I get it, like, attacking into, even though you're not pushing damage by going face, like, attacking into the 4/2 kind of, it's that effect, like, people say that giving it Wind Fury, it's able to, like, answer back your board more effectively if you make that extra attack for it.
Just weakening the position.
Yeah.
Presence offends me.
It's so good that it has Reborn, you just get to hear the best voice line so many more times.
I'm thinking Kobold Lackey and Kobold Lackey only.
Oh yeah, sign me up.
Ooh. Okay. I'm a little bit more sold on Miscreant, but this was a pretty picture-perfect ideal outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that, like, TJ and I were both like, yeah, it seems like it's cuttable, but neither of us has come anywhere near actually cutting it. Like,
Yeah.
it's still evil Miscreant.
You gotta have someone as dumb as me to be that brave. Step 1, get rid of it.
$12 from hand now. For SilverName with the Leroy Shadow Step.
Yeah, Orange, I mean, he has to be interested in using Blizzard here.
Observe and
I'm trying to think of what draw actually gets him out of this. Kartut Defender.
Yep.
3/4 Reborn, Death Rattle, restore 3 health. Arcane Keysmith could get you out of it. Flame Ward. That's a tricky one.
There
That's true.
must be a way.
Yeah, would stop specifically the Shadow Step from happening. Zephrys, of course, as well. Always worth considering. I don't think Orange has played his yet this game, right?
Time.
Can always find him an answer.
Yeah, that's correct.
Observe.
Oh my.
Oh, greed.
Well,
Greed alert. Can still take down the board to the point there's only 1 damage in play, though, which means he's still protected against Leroy Shadowstep just the same.
yeah. And now I'm curious about SilverName here. It's going into 8 mana for Orange. So if you Leroy Shadowstep now, you put your opponent in a position where they have to be able to restore health in order to win.
And a lot of it, because you have Life Drink or Eviscerate to follow that up.
So yeah, I mean, his instinct is to take that line, and the time is nigh.
You ain't dying. You can give Orange 4 whelps all he wants. It's not helping him win the race.
And if you're in Orange's spot, that is the worst sight to see, because that means more damage.
Yep.
And that Shadow Step, very likely to do him in. The Kartut Defender no longer works.
Nope.
A Holy Light from Zephrys won't work. There's no Mage card that Volpera Scoundrel can provide that will work.
I think Orange is cooked.
No, you can't Arcane Intellect. I'm trying to think of any like weird Zephrys thing right now.
Yeah, I was just trying as well. I don't
Must
think
be
there
a
is one.
way.
You have maximum 6 to spend.
Yeah, even if Zephrys showed up, Savage Roar would be 28 damage in that regard. And you would need the mana to cast the Savage Roar from that perspective.
Yeah.
So there's just nothing here.
Oh, a Zephrys into
Observe
Bloodlust?
and reflect.
If he had drawn Zephrys this turn, yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of like Volpera Scoundrel.
Oh, I see what you're
fine,
saying. Okay,
yeah.
yeah. But if he'd have just ripped the Zephrys, he could have Bloodlusted for lethal. Sure. Which, huh. Do we then have to revisit whether it's correct or not to give your opponent 4 whelps in that position? Are you more secure in the position of winning the game over 2 or 3 turns than giving your opponent that possible out?
It opens Alexstrasza.
That's true. Yeah, it has to be this turn, right? Yeah, it makes sense.
And Orange doesn't have the defense. That means SilverName's walking away with this one. 2 games to 1. The generous Mummy is very generous. I don't know. I mean, I was trying to think of something. He won with a generous Mummy. I'm telling you, it's not that bad.
It did 0 damage.
It forced 2 Ray of Frosts.
Sure.
It baited Orange into playing his cards too fast.
Sure.
That part's not true.
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting at is that Generous Mummy, pretty much any minion in an aggro deck that's, you get more stats for the cost than it's worth, it forces your opponent to respond.
Yep.
When your opponent has to respond, it means they have to use their tools, and they can run out of them in that situation. Like, not having those 2 Ray of Frost and just having a minion in play was enough to start forcing through damage at some point.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very fair analysis. I think the one thing I will add that's kind of different with Generous Mummy is, like, yeah, you force your opponent to have answers, but unlike other cards like it that are overstated with drawbacks, you also give your opponent the ability to answer it because they can play more expensive effects earlier in the game. So they can kind of contest it with equal stats because they can just play a minion that's one more expensive anyway. So it's kind of a weird card. I hate it. I really just want to play a different game whenever I get it off Pharaoh Cat. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not saying it's a good card. I'm saying if that's the minion you got, you slam it into play.
Of course. Oh yeah, of course. You can't just play the game like -1 card down all the time, right? Just play to 1 mana 1/2 and move on with your life. And no,
you
it
can't
doesn't
do that
work.
part. So, SilverName ends up taking the victory and kind of struts his stuff with the Aggro Rogue deck. And Aggro Rogue, I think, is a deck that is very unrefined at the moment. I think it's very solid, but a nice shell to start with from that position. And we do not have an interview with SilverName because neither myself or Sottle speak Russian.
Yeah, because we're dumb.
Well, that's true, but that's not correlated with the Russian part of it.